Thank you for coming on a holiday and taking the time to be here with me. This is my last day in Taipei. I fly back tonight. And honestly, I've had a very wonderful time and a nice experience. The town back in the 1960s and 1970s was very rural. No electricity, no running water. And my parents really wanted to go kind of a little bit back to nature. And so this is a little bit, I showed this slide because it helps to understand a little bit of my background, but also the fact that when I was a child there, I spent a lot of time with Earthwatch, with architects, with archaeologists, doing kind of mapping of the whole town. And I think that really informed a lot of my work. So a lot of my work, I suppose, getting back to Peru, started really thinking about this city and its development, especially in relationship to migration. And one of the first works I worked on was this piece called Balance Extensiones that had, I think, a lot to do with migration, a lot to do with place. I collected these rocks from the quarries around the Secret Valley around my town, from the main Inca sites. And I basically cut into them and then forged construction steel around them. And initially used it as a kind of performance piece, but I preferred it as a sculpture. Alongside the card, I started building this piece as well. This piece is built out of the newspapers every day, making basically a brick a day during 3 years. So it was a way of getting into my studio, but it's also a way of relearning my own history with Peru. And then on the top of it, I took all the dates and kind of wove them together in this netting that cast a kind of shadow of the modern city behind. And started making these pieces that were really about homes and shelters. This is made from cooking oil cans. They're rescued from all the restaurants in the neighborhood. And I made it for a man that would come around with his family in the cart, and he jokingly asked me to make him a house. So I started by making him a house. And that piece kind of came off of like a discourse that I'd had a little bit with Christopher Disco, a great artist in the 1980s, had done these homeless houses, vehicles in New York. It's kind of funny, this was in front of Trump Tower, 1988. And a little bit, I started carving the phone books, and then I wanted to think a little bit more about kind of landscapes and what made landscapes more kind of talk about all of us. It was a kind of a way of being like, okay, what is our common landscape? And so I started looking for blueprints for schools, public buildings that were never built, and I carved this landscape into it. Next slide. And so around that time, with a group of friends, we founded a collective called Hawapi. Hawapi means outside from Quechua. And the objective of Hawapi was to take artists out of the gallery scene into problematic areas where there was kind of illegal gold mining, border issues, etc., and make projects out of that. And that was right next to Sebapasco, which is the largest open-face mine in Latin America, and one of the largest open-face mines in the world. People there often throw their garbage and throw the things that they don't want into it because they say the mine tailings eat them up, they disappear, they corrode. Around that time in 2018, I had a life-changing experience, which is I had a stroke and I became invalid. I couldn't talk, I couldn't think, my face didn't work, and I stopped making art for about a year. And when I started rethinking about art, I couldn't do a lot of things that I used to do, and it became a lot more internal. So I was doing this kind of like the puzzle work, and then I started thinking, what if you could make works that could communicate to other people about that? And that work became something that was bigger, where you could use kind of an iconographic image or icon image to talk about a whole society, a place where people felt that they could put all their angers and all their frustrations and all their loves and everything. So it became a community collaboration. I started going from my studio, kind of making this kind of diary, which is what these pieces are about, where I'd take these walks from my studio to the archaeological sites, and on these walks would collect a material a day. And I think if there was something that I could possibly add to this show, would be a little bit more of the sculptural elements that relate to that place us as people kind of within these pieces. But this hat comes from for me at least, from a very personal story, because it's from one of my teachers when I was younger. Okay. And so I took that and I wore it for every time that I go out and collect materials. I wear one hat, and I've made a cast of that hat. Oh. And this is a cast in terms of in concrete, because I wanted it to feel heavy, the weight of history. So I felt like there was an interesting way of thinking about everything that contains this part that also protects us.